Hello and good morning. I hope you had an awesome week, and I hope you have some awesome plans for this Christmas in July weekend. Do me a favor, let me know where you're joining from and what you're planning on doing this weekend. Than 2 minutes to go. We already got a lot of people in this live stream. If you are here, if you are one of the about 10 people that are here, let us know where you're joining from. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Friday Focus. I am so excited that you're here. Hello. Hello out there in internet land. Thank you so much for joining. It means the world to us that you're joining, and that us, the other part of that us, is my friend Mike Vrobel. How are we doing today, sir?
Whoop, whoop, I was muted. Hello, I'm good.
There we go. So yeah, so basically what is the Friday Focus? If we do have some new viewers here, it is kind of like our weekly news show where we are, we share our views on the photo industry. Myself coming from the, photo and wedding industry, or the portrait and wedding industry, also working here at the Pixel Connection. And then my friend Mike Vrobel, who is a fellow nerd slash geek like me and loves just diving into the news. And you come from a food photography and kind of I would say like an everyday professional user. Like, where would you pigeonhole yourself if you were?
Yeah, food photography is it for me. It is a large part of my blog, and that's my professional focus. I'm also a hobbyist photographer, of course, like I think all of us are, and will shoot almost anything that looks interesting. But for me, the food photography is what actually makes me the money to keep buying the cameras.
Absolutely. And where can people find you online? Where can they find that food photography?
I am at dadcooksdinner.com or at dadcooksdinner at most of the socials.
Excellent. And I did want to say hello to our friend. This is Jim Summers. I went on the Facebook and saw. Welcome back, Jim. I'm loving the photos that you put out there with the nice panorama from your trip. And it says that you are back. So I hope that means you are not only back to the show and watching with us, but also safe and sound back home. So welcome back, Mr. Summers. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I wanted to let you know that Abby, did we drop today's episode? We did drop today's episode. It is live in the feed, and in this one, this was a new one for us. This is the Talking Pixels podcast, and what's new about it is the fact that we had a guest on, and it was a Pints and Pixels is what we called it. So we sent our guest. A beer from the Great Lakes Brewing, and we enjoyed it on air together. And then we jumped into the we talked about business, and Logan Deddy was our first guest. And honestly, like, if you don't listen to any other episode, listen to that one, because it's super super powerful to hear kind of where Logan started from and how he's been able to grow his business, now having multiple employees, and he's just killing it. So, and just to hear his story of, where he started and where he's at now is just truly an inspiration. So do yourself a favor, on any of the major podcasting networks, you'll find it. Just search for the Talking Pixels podcast, or if you go to social.thepixelconnection.com, you'll be able to see that there as well. That is our podcast where we don't talk about gear, we don't talk about sales, we only talk about taking your photography hobby into a career. So definitely want to take a look at that. Some housekeeping notes. We are open at the store from 10 to 7 Monday through Friday. We are here with our smiling faces, although they will be masked because masks are mandatory. So we ask that when you do come into the store, you do your part and wear the mask. And then on Saturdays, we are here from 10 to 5 as well. If you don't want to come in the store, that's totally fine. We're not going to take it personally. I promise you. Just give us a call. We also offer curbside pickup and free shipping on most of the items on our website. So if you do need absolutely anything, please let us know. And if you do come into the store, we're doing our part to make sure everything's clean, healthy, sanitized for you guys. So again, here's the slide on everything. I don't want to, I do want to belabor the point that we are doing everything we can to keep everything safe and clean and comfortable for when you do come and shop with us. So, what are our goals for today? First and foremost, we want to update you on the photography related news that you might have missed. The 5 o'clock news block on channel 3508 usually doesn't cover the photo news. So, we've taken that on to give you a kind of a weekly summation of that. It's also our goal to pull you away from the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's going on, and remind you that we all have this awesome hobby in common, and that is photography. So, we want to bring you in for, even if it is only 45 minutes, as we talk and discuss what's going on in the photo industry. And then finally, we also have a whole section dedication to inspiration and how-tos, and that's really just to get you motivated to try something outside of comfort zone. So this week, Nikon did something a little outside of their comfort zone, and that was they put out an entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera. It is known as the Z or Z5. Tell us a little bit about it, Mr. Vrobel. What's going on with this camera?
Well, the Z or Z, if you are coming to us from north of Lake Erie, is their new low-end camera. It's listed for $13.99 for the body or $16.99 with the kit lens, and it's got some pretty good specs. It's a 24 megapixel sensor, 2 card slots, unlike the Z6 and Z7. 4.5 frames per second, so a little on the slow side, but normal for an entry-level camera like this one, and a tilty screen on the back. No flip-around screen like all the Canons that were just announced, but it does have some articulation.
Yeah, so this one was interesting in that dual card slots came to an entry-level camera. So I'm thinking if I was shooting the Z6 right now or the Z7, I wouldn't know what to do, because I know as a photographer, and if you listen to the podcast, you'll know I had this happen to me before the mirrorless cameras went to single or dual card slots. I had a camera that I was shooting, had a single card slot at a wedding, lost everything but the ceremony. It was horrible. But
ouch.
again, you can listen to that story in the podcast. But thinking about that now, thinking, where would I go? Would I pick up this Z5 because I want full frame, I want mirrorless, I want everything that it has to offer, and do I sacrifice, the frames per second, the, not having the top screen because I want those dual card slots? I don't know. That's what it doesn't anger me. Like, I don't lose sleep over this, but it's interesting to me that, Nikon puts dual card slots in an entry level device. Like, it's just interesting to me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this makes, I believe it was a rumor we talked about a few weeks ago about the Z6S and the Z7S coming with dual card slots, much more likely. The other interesting thing about this one is these are UHS-2 SD card slots, and not, is it XQD is the format that Nikon has been using? Yeah, which is a little bit of an oddball that nobody else has been using. So that's the other question I have for the Z6S and the Z7S is, are they going to go to UHS or maybe CF Express instead of XQD? As far as
that handles, because I know that Sony kind of owns that, and every time they're used, they get that licensing fee. So I'm wondering if they are going to pull away from it. I don't see. I look back to like my time at Panasonic and the decisions that we made around like I didn't have any call in these decisions. I'm not saying that, but the company made when it came to like the S1H, with dual, going with dual SD card slots versus the mixed SD versus XQD versus, what's the difference in between, and how can a camera that's doing 6K,
right.
have that happen on dual SD card slots? And it's because, SD is still pretty solid. You know what I mean? Unless you're having the huge, 100 megapixel files and you're doing that at multiple frames per second, higher than 4.5 like this camera's doing, I don't think you really need that extra oomph. So I think a camera like this is going to be fine for, doing the SDs, but the Z7, like I would think that they would have to have those, the newer, more modern cards in order to, have those large frames, and then also at the higher frames per second. So it'll be interesting to see if they do stick with the UHS-2 SD cards, or they do go with the, the newer, more modern cards types.
Yeah, I agree that the higher end cameras probably need XQD or CF Express. The other thing I wanted to mention was, you said, if I'm a professional, do I get this camera? And that leads me into the pricing, where I know that for Nikon, this MSRP is lower than the Z6, because I believe the Z6's MSRP is about $2,000.
Yep.
But it regularly sells for a couple $100 less than that. And then these two are kind of bumping up against each other price-wise. And I have a feeling that, like the Z6, it's listed at $2,000 and sells for less. This one will eventually do the same thing, because this is a good set of specs on what looks like a very compelling camera, especially if you're a Nikon shooter. But if you compare it to, say, the Canon RP, other than those two dual card slots, you can get most of the same specs for $1,000, $999 for the body. And based on that, this camera seems a little overpriced. I think part of it is Nikon's counting on the Nikon fans saying, oh, I can get those 2 card slots and I need those 2 card slots. I'm going to buy this one. And then they're kind of hoping that they can sell them the Z6S or the Z7S in a few months when it comes out. So I think they're bumping that price up a bit to try to get the early adopters like me to get a little more money out of them.
And I guess that's a question too. Does full frame mirrorless entry level is $999 that number?
Yeah. It feels like that's what everybody's gunning for, if not cheaper. I mean, I heard someone on a YouTube video, I think it was Tony Northrup, say that when he gets asked by complete novices, what camera should I get? He asks them, well, what price range are you looking at? And they always say $300 to $500. Right. And it feels like it's going to be a while before we can get full frame down into that range, but it also feels like $1,000 is that magic number. If you can put 999 and not get that extra decimal place there, that makes a big deal in the buying psychology. People will be much more likely to pay for it if you can get it that $1 below 1,000.
Right, and part of this too, keeping up with that, that 999 or that 3-digit was another interesting announcement, and that was this lens, this 24 to 50. It's a 4-6-3, and it's meant to be like a small kit zoom. So this to me was kind of interesting. Now Panasonic did something very similar recently in that kind of that focal range, and we have a video on our YouTube channel where we talk about it. But that 24 to 50, you usually see 24 to 70, 24 to 105 for full frame kit lenses. Is this of value? I mean, is this a lens that they're going to want, or are they just going to take it and just sell it instantly and go to, a 24 to 70 or a 24 to 105 or something more? Because I feel like that's a little limiting. A, it's a 4-6-3 lens, and B, it's 24 to 50. So it's not like you have a ton of reach. It's not bad on the wide end. It's 24, but it's definitely not ultra wide. So, I'm interested on your thoughts, because again, we're balanced out at $400. So it's a $400 lens in a system that definitely needs lenses right now. So I can respect it that they are adding lenses to it, but is that a lens that you think a lot of people are going to be excited for?
I agree with you. I don't think people are going to be excited for this lens. It's the Panasonic, comparisons. Within the system, yes, they need this lens. Comparing it to that Panasonic, that extra 4 millimeters on the wide end, the 20 to 50, that lens sounded interesting to me I can go from really wide to normal. It seems like a good carry around landscape lens. 24 is just not quite wide enough for me to say, okay, that's a great range. It's a decent range, and I would probably use the 24 end and the 50 end, but it's not quite wide enough to make it compelling to me. And then the price, they're obviously trying to make an inexpensive lens to go with this new inexpensive body, but you can get the Canon kit lens, which is a 24 to 105 for the same price. And again, that's Canon's cheap version where it's STM and it's variable aperture up to 7.1, but it also covers such a much wider range of shooting that it feels like a much better value, especially at the exact same price as this lens. So yeah, I think you're right that people are going to take it off and immediately sell it if there's a market for it.
I was going to say, and speaking of, I believe this is Jim Summers. He's not logged into the app, so it doesn't say, but the Z5 will kill any reasonable used market for the Z6. And I agree. Yep. I mean, if anybody is looking to offload, their Z6, I think that this is definitely going to, hurt the marketplace a little bit for that as far as resale value. So another thing that was interesting, these are all different announcements here. So we'll start with September 2020 for the 70 to 200 2.8. I think that's interesting that they are pushing that back a little bit. I know we have a lot of pre-orders for it, people excited for it. So if you did pre-order, it is looking like end of August, early September 2020 for that lens. They did announce new teleconverters as part of this Nikon Z announcement. So looking at their map, like right now, the teleconverters, like there's not really much you can use them on. But it's great to see that they are coming out. The firmware updates are out for them. It's great. I think they're doing good things with that, and it shows that they're committed to this system. But let's check out this ready for rapid expansion. So this is the roadmap, and I believe on this the 14 to 24 was added. Um,
Right. Yeah, there was
Teleconverters
rumored that
are
that
on.
one was coming this week, but it looks like they just put it officially onto the roadmap.
Right. And I think it's interesting that they say get ready for rapid expansion. So we have a couple shadows here: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 different shadows on this graphic. If you're just listening to the podcast, there's 8 shadows on this Nikon graphic, and some primes, some long lenses. Um, Rapid expansion, what does that mean? Do you think, I don't know if you read into, any release dates for this. I think they're all coming soon, correct?
Well, soon, yes, but again, I feel like I've been burned by Nikon before with the 70 to 200. They've been taking pre-orders and released it, and it feels like it keeps creeping. Like, okay, August, okay, maybe September, and I think this is habitual with Nikon, where they have a hard time keeping up with demand. So many people want their stuff,
Right.
but uh, it just feels like, again, I wish they were pushing lenses out with the pace that Canon is right now. They need to catch up to Sony's lenses, and they've
Even
put
Elmont
some good.
Alliance. I mean, you have the
Yeah,
Elmont Alliance that's, launching lenses, and like they
yeah,
need to wake up. They
yeah.
definitely need to wake up.
I agree, and this again, I'm glad they're adding these lenses, and I like the lenses they've made, but yeah, the 200 to 600 and the 100 to 400 Pro. Nikon is legendary for their long telephotos. Where are the long telephotos? And as a
Right.
wildlife, mainly bird photographer, those are the ones that I always hear about because those are the people I listen to. But they love those long Nikon lenses. Where are they for this system?
Yeah, non-existent.
Yeah, they're not even on the roadmap.
Nope, they are not. So I did want to talk about this. Nikon releases new firmware updates for the mirrorless Z system. So a couple of the high points: animal eye detect was added. So I think that's
Mhm.
awesome that they were able to do that in firmware. We couldn't tell, and somebody might be able to correct us, especially if Jim's here. I read the press release as this was added to um, the existing line. So I don't know if this was just fine tuning of it or if this was just in like movie modes, but it looks like they did add animal eye detect. And I think that was something that was promised earlier on, and it's just taken them a little while to get it. Lens updates for F lenses. I thought this one was very interesting. So,
Mm.
and it didn't really occur to me until I was putting the slides together for this, that if you, let's say you switched to the Z line and you came from that old, your old Nikon glass, you kept it around because you still needed those long lenses, or there wasn't a Z lens that you need, you kept them around. So this is interesting because now they're allowing you to update that firmware via the adapter. So you no longer have to keep a old camera around in order to update those lenses or send those lenses off for to the manufacturer to get the firmware update done. It can now happen through the FTZ adapter, which I think is awesome. And then there was some Z6 video updates. So it seemed like it was more fine tuning. There was like a green hue, I believe, on the monitor, and like you couldn't control the camera, I believe, via the camera. You could only do it through the external monitor and certain things. So it was just fine tuning things that they heard from the community, and they rolled out those updates. So definitely urge you to take a look at these. And um,
Yeah, it's the standard boilerplate on the end of every firmware update you ever get, and bug fixes and improvements.
exactly. And then, like, I think this is Jim Summers again. It's just Facebook user, but going to wait a week before I update my Z6, and I don't blame you there at
Yeah,
all.
always a good
Especially if
idea.
it's your only camera, or if that's what you use to make money with. Definitely want to pause for a minute, um, because, and I guess I'll go down this rabbit hole a little bit. Is when I think about Fuji, I think about Sony, I think about everybody but Canon and Nikon. If I look back to when I shot Canon back in the day, um, the firmware updates were few and far between. I mean, they didn't come out all the time. And now with mirrorless cameras, what we've seen is they're more, you know, they're more often. So I would have no problem doing a Fuji firmware update or a Sony firmware update because they've done it for a while. But I'm with Mr. Summers here in that I'm gonna probably wait for a Canon or a Nikon firmware update until, just give it a little bit to settle, have the early adopters kind of figured out, be the guinea pigs before I would do it on my camera, because this is still kind of newer for them doing the firmware updates and stuff.
Yeah, but I am glad to see that Canon and Nikon have woken up to this, that a camera isn't a physical device that you ship out and it gets sent back to the factory if it needs repair. It's a computer that happens to have a lens attached to it that you can update with firmware and make some pretty significant updates to firmware with it. And this is one of the things where I think that's why Sony and to a lesser extent Fuji became such compelling alternatives to SLRs, is because of the constant updates. Your camera got better as time went on. And recently, Canon and Nikon both seem to have taken that to heart. And that's really good to see because I want them both to succeed.
Absolutely. And speaking of critical updates or having updates and getting better with time, Adobe is also following in that same footsteps with Adobe CC. I mean, we're seeing a lot more frequent updates with the new subscription model instead of waiting, a year to push out an update or waiting for features for a new version. Usually I get excited for these because it's, I want to see what the new features are. I want to see, what can Lightroom do better for me that it couldn't before, or is there a new tool in Premiere that's going to make my life easier? But this one seemed like it was all security patches, so it seems like they did have themselves opened up for some issues. And for me, this isn't a big deal, and I think you're the same. You have yours set to auto update, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is in my opinion, one of the main reasons I signed up for Creative Cloud is I just constantly get the stream of updates. I want it updated, and it just does it for me in the background. I've been away for a couple days. I came home, turned on my computer, and it had the little red dot in Creative Cloud saying, "Hey, I've got an update." But when I clicked on it, it said, "Oh yeah, we took care of that already."
We got you.
Yep.
Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Exactly.
So if you are an Adobe user and you don't have automatic updates set, make sure you get those patched. This, I think it was Mac and PC. So
Yep.
definitely want to make sure that you are running your required updates. So moving on, before we do move on, I want to say hello. We had someone else pop in here. Hello, Mr. Tech Gear Talk. Hopefully you are doing well. DJ TJ. Yeah, I will be mixing all the songs. TJ the DJ.
Dropping some sick beats on us here.
Exactly. So I have no way to segue sick beats into the fact that Mark Lavoie is now at Adobe, but he is. So Google's ex-lead of computational photography, Mark Lavoie, to build new imaging experiences at Adobe. So what do you read into this? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this is a big get for Adobe. I mean, Adobe has been doing really well with the computational photography stuff, but Google has been doing, for years now, they did the night mode where you could just hold your camera up and it would slowly build a nighttime picture. They had, back before they had multiple lenses to do depth sensing, to make fake bokeh, they were using their single lens and computations to do fake bokeh. And so those are all the things where we are carrying computers around in our pockets nowadays, and those cameras can do some amazing things that we carry around on the phone in our pockets. And Adobe, I think, realizes they need, they're doing really well at this stuff, but they need more. And so I think getting this guy is going to be a big help for them.
I agree. And I think it's also interesting to see that, Adobe is the tools that creators use to create, whereas Google is a manufacturer who arguably kind of does the same thing, but it's only a small part of their business. So I think he's going to have a lot more impact at Adobe across not only photo is great, but what about when we can do that with video? what, if we're going to do like live streamings, live streams are becoming more and more the norm. So, live chroma keying on any background, improving that to, better simulcasting to, whatever that looks like. It's the computational side that I think's awesome. But I'm hoping that it just opens up more tools for creators to get into this. And, I want more than just a bokeh slider. You know what I mean? I want, more fine tuning. I want to see how I can use some of this computational information or computational tools in order to make better photographs. And I'm also kind of hoping that we see some of this computational photography, I don't even know what you want to call it, this technology, and see it come into cameras more, because I think that's where cell phones are just dominating the point and shoot market right now, is because of computational photography. I mean, I look at my watch and I have a black and white photo of my wife, and it was shot on an iPhone. It was because at that time, that's what was with me. Now, most of
Yeah,
that was
no.
because
Well,
I was playing with the stage light thing and it blacked out the background, and it ended up being kind of a cool photo.
yep.
I always have a camera with me, but it was just that happened to be the camera that I had with me at the time. So I hope some of these features make it into our cameras. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that you said that caught my attention is, I've been thinking Photoshop, but what will be interesting is Premiere and video, where if they can bring like fake bokeh in a picture, that's, years ago that would have been impossible. Now it's easy. Everybody does it. But doing that live 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, maybe this is the guy who's going to get them there. And that would be fascinating.
Or
And
does
I'm going to save
autofocus
my
not matter
thoughts
anymore?
on phone cameras for a later topic.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I guess a question that I have too, does this mean, computational photography, if it does get into video, does autofocus matter less? If it's now recording all of this information and they're able to do things with computation, does that mean that, autofocus is less on the camera? Now we're able to go through and change things. Same thing with the background, the depth of field. I'm excited just thinking about what the possibilities are in the future with him being on board over at Adobe. So good pickup on Adobe. I'm sure Google's going to miss him, but I'm excited that he did find, he raced over to Adobe. Speaking of racing, sorry, I'm really bad at segues today. it was I
I
tried.
was
I
going to
saw a
say,
picture of a
thinking of
girl
good
running.
acquisitions, but you do you.
I just saw, like, under the corner of my eye, saw the girl running. I'm like, okay, we'll try this. Anyway, so Associated Press, AP, announces new exclusive partnership with Sony cameras. So this one was interesting to me. So give us the rundown. What exactly was this announcement?
So this announcement seems to be that Associated Press, the world famous wire service that produces news stories for whoever wants them, local newspapers, television, whoever, they have signed an exclusive camera deal with Sony, where if you are an AP photographer, you will use Sony equipment. And this is a big deal because most of those people probably aren't Canon, or I'm sorry, Sony shooters are probably Canon or Nikon from years ago. And this is a huge coup for Sony. And I'm wondering how big the money dump truck they had to back up to AP was to get these rights.
100%. And I think timing wise, it's super interesting that we have, we're on the, eve of the R5 and the R6 coming out, which are powerhouses. And for, even for that news agency, the news, to direct to the wire. I mean, you look at the one grip that came out for the new R system, and it's made to FTP. I mean, it's literally meant to shoot to the wire. So
Right.
for Sony to see this opportunity and jump on it. Now, I'm sure this wasn't something that happened overnight,
Right.
but props to Sony for jumping in and just seizing that opportunity before the R5 and the R6 could get out there. Because, and honestly, it just took Canon too long. They allowed Sony early on to get a head start, make thinking mirrorless was a joke. And then they were told that, hey, your noisy cameras, they're not going to be allowed in the press room anymore. Like, you have to have a
Right.
silent shutter. We don't want to hear, I envision those like little teeth that like when you wind them up and they chatter. That's what the White House pressers look like. So now they're requiring, hey, it has to be a silent shutter. And Sony was like, hey, we're gonna double down on this, and we're gonna strike up this partnership. So, do
Yeah,
you?
I mean, it's almost become a cliche nowadays. If you have, I mean, I'm thinking of commercials. If you have a commercial where you want to show someone who's just done something wrong and they're walking up in front of the press, there's that sound of the SLR shutters firing like mad in the background. And like you said, I have heard that there are very specific rules about when press photographers are allowed to shoot and when they're not. The one I heard of was in the White House briefing room, where they're only allowed to shoot during certain periods because they don't want that constant firing of SLR shutters in the background. And when the first Sony shooter went in there and showed them, look, I have a silent shutter, electronic shutter, I can fire whenever and nobody will hear me. One, they said, yes, you can shoot whenever, which was a big advantage for him. And two, they said to him, well, why doesn't everybody else have these cameras? Why do they have all these noisy things that are interrupting our press conferences? So I think Sony leveraged that early adoption of silent shutters, again, and dump trucks of money, to convince AP that this is a good idea to get these cameras into the hands of your photographers.
100%. And I guess let's really quick look at the other side of this. What does this mean to that AP photographer?
Yeah.
That has to now learn a whole new system. Is there a transition period where they can at least learn this new system? Maybe Sony's already been working on this and seeded so many devices. I would just think if I had to today switch to Nikon, like,
Right.
I would be lost. I would be absolutely lost. I've shot with every other brand, so I'd be a little bit more comfortable for any brand, or worse, Pentax. Like, if I had to pick up a Pentax camera right now, I would have no idea, and that's affecting my job now. So now I'm not getting the photos that I was sent out here to send to my photo editor. What does that mean for them? Like, is there a training program? Is there, or was it, hey, 80% of us are already shooting Sony, so 20%, like, get over here. Like, you
Right.
need to get over here.
Right. The other question I have, because I have no idea whether AP photographers are essentially freelancers and have to buy their own cameras, is Sony giving them a discount for this? I mean, it feels like this is a marketing move by Sony, and you would think that part of the good marketing would be, hey, AP photographers, come on over. We'll load you up with gear.
Right. Here's a discount, and free, I'm sure they're professional services, because Sony's professional services, and
Yep.
I have some friends there and they do a really good job, especially for, across the mirrorless brands as far as a professional service. Sony has a good professional services, team over there. So I would say they're probably the most armed right now to, support the AP in such a large thing. But I think if it would have been a year later, or if Canon would have been a year earlier, this would have been a totally different news story. So I did want to bring up Mr. Jim Summers. The silent shutter made a difference in tennis and golf photography as well.
There you go.
100%, and as well as wedding photography during the vows. And that's what, having it being a wedding shooter myself, and shot most of my career, or a lot of my career, most of my wedding career on mirrorless. I mean, that was one thing that I always got a lot of props for, was, oh, I didn't even know you were there. Or, it was so nice to not like be, being loud. We've been at other weddings where we hear, the shutter all the time. They don't say shutter, they hear the noisy camera. But,
Right.
So yeah, again, definitely the, having that quiet shutter definitely helps during those times. And then we did miss a comment from Tech Gear Talk. I think it's probably easier to blur something captured in focus than to bring something that's in focus that was captured out of focus. 100%.
Definitely.
But you know what? I believe in the future. I believe in the future of Mr. What is it, Lavoie. I believe that he can solve that problem.
Well, I also wonder about technologies like, was it the Lytro, the light field camera, where they were shooting multiple depths of field, and in their software you could pick which, what focus you wanted after the fact. But yeah, that feels like that's more like a camera technology than a build that into Photoshop or Adobe Premiere technology to me. So who knows?
Pour one out for Lytro.
That's right.
They officially a couple
Never
weeks
forget.
ago said, at least they tried. I give them props for courage for trying something new. So let's go ahead and jump into our education and tutorials block. This one you found and was super, super interesting. And this is a single shot, right?
Right. This is an in-camera shot. What you aren't seeing is there is a chair that she is sitting on. She's actually sitting on the back of the chair, and the foot in front of her is on the seat of the chair where you would normally sit. And he said that they just had her out there, and he's worked with this model before, and she's a good sport and willing to try things. And so she's dropping her dress so that they get that, kind of hovering in midair look, and they just kept trying, and they finally got the shot they wanted. And I'm just amazed at the creativity in getting this shot. And I'm also amazed that the water was still enough that you can't, it's hiding the chair, but not so wavy that she's getting wiped out.
Right. And well done. I mean, definitely props to old Robbie Harvey Media for putting this together. And I even looked at like he's not like he's not a famous photographer. He's just he is a creative that, tried something new and it got picked up. So, we want you guys to try this on Lake Erie this weekend. We want to see your best levitation shots. And I want them to be lit off camera, just like this one was. Mm-hmm. But yes, great. I mean, awesome. I mean, it's a cool idea, great inspiration to try something new. So the IPP Awards, what are the IPP Awards? Tell us about them.
The IPP Awards are Apple's iPhone Photography Awards. And when I said earlier, I'm going to save my thoughts on phone cameras, now's the time for me to bring out my thoughts on phone cameras. You really need to go look at that site we have there, ippawards.com, just to look at some of the pictures that people were able to get with the camera we all carry around with us every day in our pocket. I mean, you've heard the best camera is the one you have on you. Gear doesn't matter. Good photographers matter. And these pictures are amazing examples of that. I mean, that one on the left with, I believe those are fireworks strapped to sticks to make them look like torches. And I just picture, okay, guys, it's time to go storm the castle. We got to go get Dracula. But it's just such an amazing picture. And all of these are such amazing pictures. And they show what, if you can see it, the fact that you can see it and the fact that you know what you're looking for as a photographer is more important than the gear. We talk a lot about gear on this because gear news is fun, and I'm as much of a gearhead as anybody, but those cameras that we carry around every day in our pockets keep getting better and better, and have the advantage of also being the computer we carry around in our pockets, and you get all the apps that'll add things on and help you out. So this is a really inspiring site, and I dug through some of it, and I want to go in because you can dig in to, like, these are the award winners, but if you click through on the awards, you can see all of the honorable mentions, and there's just some amazing stuff in there.
And full disclosure too. So the way that we do this show is we both look at news from the week and we pop it into a Google spreadsheet, and then we jump on and create the slides. And I think we both had it in our list that the iPhone awards were announced this week. But he built this slide, so we got here, and like as I'm talking about it, I'm like, the IPP Awards, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that. I didn't realize, because I saw this top right image and I'm like, I wonder what the IPP Awards are. Like, did I miss that he was gonna put like this awards and I missed it? I thought it was like International Press Photography. Like, I was trying to figure out what IPP Awards was, and because of how good these photos are on this slide. So definitely go take a look at the award winners, because again, I read the article and I just saw a couple photos. These were pulled from the actual site, but do yourself a favor if you're looking for some inspiration for some mobile phone photography. These photos are, just so dreamy, well done. They tell a story. They could be printed. They're top-notch stuff. So very cool. Very, very cool. So this is one that I believe a lot of people have been wanting to do. I don't live near the lake. I've wanted to stay up here later so I can get a photo of the comet, but there are a couple more days left. Is that correct?
Yes. Yesterday was, I believe, the peak day. It's at its brightest, but I think it's at least a couple weeks, because like the pictures we have there, including friend of the show Ehor's picture, those were from last week and maybe even the week before. So I think there's a couple week window to get pictures of, and I'm trying to find the name of the comet here. It is a very interesting name based on the infrared telescope that found it, but yep. I'm blanking on the name. So if you want to get a picture of this, Like me, my personal connection to this is I am on vacation from the day job this week, and my mom's side of the family has a cottage on Lake Erie, and I went out last night on our first day looking for it, and I couldn't find it in spite of the best attempts of the Skywalk app and the PhotoPills app to help me out. I think there were just too many clouds in the direction where it was, and it was just too bright from the collected light. But according to the Lake Erie nearshore forecast, tonight is going to be a clear night, so I'm heading out there again and hoping to get a picture.
Nice. So I have the perfect sound effect for your try so far.
Yes, so far. Fingers crossed for tonight.
Trombone. So yes, there is a great article there on Light Stalking for you if you do want to get a photo of the comment. I myself am just going to steal Eeyore's photos and just say that they're mine. So there you go. Got the evil eye from him. So moving on. So I can't believe this took so long, but the cover of Vanity Fair was shot by an African-American photographer for the first time. So this was not the first time an African-American person was on the cover, but that it was the photographer was African-American. So again, I think it's awesome that we have these articles where we're seeing more and more change happen right in front of us. I'm hoping that there is even more change and, more companies are doing more. But it's just, I wish it wouldn't have taken this long. So, props to Vanity Fair for putting this together and making that splash. I hope it's not just I hope there are systemic changes to combat racism, and I hope this wasn't just a publicity stunt. And that's where I always get kind of that fine line between, is this publicity or are there systemic changes? And I'm feeling more personally, more and more like it's systemic changes for the good. So thank you so much, Vanity Fair, for, making that happen. It's awesome to see. Sure.
Yeah, and I have to think that, Vogue is getting dragged in the news for the recent picture of, the gymnast whose name is escaping me, and how poorly lit her skin was, because you have to know how to shoot black skin to get the colors right on it. And I don't think this is necessary. It's certainly a good opportunity for Vanity Fair, but I have to think that the lead time for a magazine cover photo is long enough that this hadn't blown up yet. So I think they were actually out ahead of the curve on this one, and this isn't just quick, let's get someone in here and get a picture for the cover.
Right. And then real quick, just to jump back to the comment, Mr. Jim Summers says, pro tip, need to shoot the comet at least 50 millimeters or greater for it to really show up, which is the opposite when we normally think about astrophotography. We usually want to go a little bit wider. But thank you so much for Jim for putting that out there.
Good to know.
So moving right along, if you do want to keep up with, let's say you want something a little bit further as far as tutorials, or you're looking for just more help on, certain areas. Like I did a video 101 class that was great this week. We have a full line of classes. So if you go to thepixelconnection.com/events or /classes, you'll be able to see the, everything that we have lined up for you. And, everything from video 101 to podcasting 101 to live streaming 101. We have an advanced lighting class coming up, advanced Lightroom coming up. So again, if that's something that you are interested, those are currently in-person classes. We might open them up to online, but we are limiting them to, a limited amount of people in store that we can actually physically make room to socially distance. So keep an eye on our website as more of those events are popping up. And if you do want to go back and look at some of our live streams, you can we have a whole playlist of live streams over on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/thepixelconnection, you'll be able to see all of the video content that we have put together. So let's get into the rumor roundup. There will not be an EOS 5D Mark V. True or false? What do you think?
I'm torn on this one, because with the R5 and the R6 coming out, this feels like where Canon is going. The reason I'm torn is it also feels like they have a bunch of people who still would buy DSLRs, especially if they have a large EF mount collection of lenses. They just released the 1DX Mark III. And the rumor says that Canon may do something for people who are DSLR fans and want a new DSLR. Why wouldn't they put out a new 5 and call it a 5? I mean, I don't. Why would you say, well, we're going to release a new 6, but not a new 5? It feels like this is long-term true, but short-term, my gut tells me there will be a successor to the 5.
And it's interesting timing-wise, too, because the 5D Mark IV has been out for a pretty long time. Not to the point where it's like time to, switch it out necessarily or in a release cycle, but I think there's going to be a Mark V personally. Or I should say, I think there's going to be a professional SLR that is for professionals, but it's below the 1DX Mark III.
Right.
Yes. So I think we're still going to see, it might not be the 5, the 6, it might just be, the EOS, I don't know, whatever they want to name it, DSLR, whatever. I still think there's going to be, I think there is still a need for that. I mean, we had one customer that came in over the last 2 months who's bought 3 Mark IVs to replace 2 of his Mark IIIs, and then he wants to do video. So he's like, well, I'll just get the Mark IV, another one. I mean, such a great price. And then I'll know across, all of them are interchangeable. So, honestly, 5D Mark IVs are flying off the shelves. So I still think there is a pretty big market for that DSLR, and there's a lot of professionals. We meaning you and I, and if this isn't true for you, then correct me. But I feel like we're in an echo chamber of the news, what's new, what's fresh. We're both mirrorless shooters, so we're always like, what's
guilty
the next
as charged?
technology? Exactly. So that's our our echo chambers that we exist in. But there is this whole other echo chamber of people that, guess what? This camera, it's literally just a tool to do the job, and they don't really care what it is. There's still people that are shooting the 5D Mark II, Mark IIIs, the Nikon. We still get people that are just now trading in their 600s, their 610s on the Nikon side. So there are some people that they get a camera and they hold on to it for 6 or 7 years, and they're happy with it doing what it does. I mean, you don't have to worry about like for a typewriter versus a computer. The typewriter still gonna type. You might have a little mechanical issue here and there, but computers, on the other hand, you have blue screens and viruses and everything that can go wrong. So there are people that just want a simple thing that it takes pictures. It's not a supercomputer. So I think that I'm going to be counterculture and say I think there is going to be a replacement flagship Mark V.
I agree. And I think your comment about, I'm thinking more of professional shooters who are the kind of people who go through gear because they're shooting in difficult environments and the cameras get damaged. Those people, might not want to switch right now. And I think Canon will accommodate them.
Absolutely. So another one we have here, this is from Olympus. So they are not dead. I feel like for now, at least for like the next 5 years, that's going to be every Olympus article. Whenever they announce something, they're not dead yet. They're not dead yet. Just like our Bring Out the Dead meme that we used a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So what do we got here? So it looks like we got a rumor about the EM10 Mark IV and a 100 to 400. But I thought they already said something about something at like 100 or 400.
Right, except this is not the 150 to 400 f4 Pro lens that has been rumored for a while now, and that has me salivating somewhat about, wow, that would make a great wildlife photography lens. This is a 100 to 400 consumer lens. It's an f5 to 6.3, coming out with their low-end M10 body. And so I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole for a second. Do we still call them Olympus? I heard different things in like competing press releases of no, Olympus is not sending the name to the new company, or maybe they are. So one of my questions going forward is, do I call these Olympus cameras? I'm sure I am going to do that out of habit, but I'm not sure if that's the company anymore. But that said, whatever the company is, and I'm just going to keep calling them Olympus because that was my attempt at humor, but everybody's going to keep calling them Olympus. This is a good idea for them, a inexpensive camera and not a $1,400 Nikon Z5 inexpensive camera. The current M10 sells for $650 body only and about $800 with a kit lens, which is more what normal people, civilians, consider inexpensive. plus the kind of lens that a camera phone can't give you. There's no camera phone that can do a 400 is an 800 equivalent in micro four thirds. This feels like a good combination to say, look, this is why you need something more than just that admittedly very good camera in your phone. This combination will give you something that phone's not going to be able to match, computational photography or no, for years. There are things where you need glass, you need real lenses because you can't break the laws of physics, as Scotty used to say, and this gives this to you at a good price. So again, kudos to Olympus. I think this is a great idea.
And also, I just want to talk about the fact now you'll be able to cover from 12 to 400 with 2 lenses. Because they have that 12 to 100 and they 12 to 200 as well. And so now with 2 lenses, imagine that as a travel kit. Now low light, okay, whatever. But if you're just looking for all purpose, I can now go as wide as 12 or as telephoto as 400 and 2 lenses in my bag. It's pretty appealing. I mean, and especially if you're not like, I went to Ireland in March, and I probably could have gotten by with just those 2 lenses. Now, would I have wanted more? Did I take more? Yes, but I probably could have. If I was just touristing, I would totally be up for that. So it makes sense that they're releasing this alongside this level of camera, because again, the EM10 is a great little small compact take everywhere with you camera. So now to be able to offer this also compact lens that gets you out to 400 millimeters, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, this would be a killer travel body with the very good Olympus lenses. Yeah, the fantastic travel combination. I agree.
Right. And I hate that we keep doing this because it kind of mixes up the show, but we did have a couple comments come in regarding the 5D. So the 90D has been more popular than I expected. I think they'll do a Mark V. And again, if you haven't checked out Tech Gear Talk's channel, he does a ton on M50, the 90D. He has amazing videos, probably some of the most informative videos on the interwebs. So go check out his stuff. But yeah, his 90D stuff has been super popular, and that's another camera that's just moving off the shelves. People are super excited for it. It checks off all the boxes that you need for photo and video, and it's a great camera. So again, I'm with him in saying that we are definitely going to see that Mark V. Now, contrary to most belief, Jim says mirrorless is great, but their EVF can be difficult in an action sports environment. Yes, that is 100% true, and I agree. So especially when they're, we're not to that point of, we're getting there, of that really high density, lifelike, screen where what you see, is what's actually happening. There's still going to be blur. There's still going to be, it's not refreshing even fast enough. Question that I'll throw out there: what about hybrid viewfinders? Could that be a possible solution for that? I don't know, but
yeah, not for sports, I don't think, because without the pentaprism mirror, so you're actually looking at what you're shooting, like a rangefinder style is not great because you're trying to line up a telephoto lens with, there you go, rangefinder style with live view. But I know from my years with the Panasonic GX8, which is a rangefinder body with some of those great micro four thirds lenses. I had the 100 to 400, and I was trying to take bird in flight photos, and something about the offset viewfinder. Yeah, I could never line anything up, let alone how do you get the zoom for sports? And I think Jim's right, and I think that's why they did release the 1DX Mark III, is because that is the sports shooter camera. Now, all that said, I remember hearing about, the EVF blackout issue and it getting behind, but I haven't heard that for the latest Sony, the A2. And I have to wonder, I'm sure Sony and everybody is working on it. I wonder if they've actually got that beat in the latest Sony. Something I'm making a note that I want to go research just because I'm curious.
Yeah. And we'll see too, because now AP is they're going to have to do it. It'll be interesting to see, just kind of interview some of these AP photographers through this change and see kind of what their thoughts are. So speaking of changes, something that changed recently is there is a possible A7 Mark III coming. Actually, we know that it's coming, and it's coming July 28th because Sony told us so. So in about 4 days, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, it looks like we are going to get an A7S 3, which a lot of, and we talked about this in depth last week. So I don't really want to, get lost down that rabbit hole. But what was interesting was just the amount of rumors that we have so far. So I just wanted to kind of go through some of these and, just kind of points of discussion. First thing that was interesting, no 6K, which again, we asked this question, I believe last week, do they have to do 6, 8, 12K in order to compete? No internal RAW, which to me is super, super interesting. They did say that it did have 4K RAW output, but they were unable to test it because of, I'm reading here, because Atomos is still working on support for the HDMI signal.
Can I break in a second for a
Yep.
bad joke?
Yeah.
I think Sony has been, quote unquote, burned in the past, drum roll please, with the camera overheating. And I think they've run into the problems that everybody's finding with the new Canon R5 with in-body RAW. And they have obviously worked very hard to make this camera not overheat. And I think they're making different trade-offs because of their experience in the past with overheating bodies.
Right.
Sorry,
So
I had to throw I had to throw the burned pun in there.
Yeah, this one was interesting. Removable port door, great. 2 USB-C. So this to me screams one for, they could use it for output. I mean, USB-C can be used for a lot of things, but I'm thinking solid state drive, like the Blackmagic does, where you'll be able to record directly to that solid state drive. And maybe that's how they do the raw piece, as they're sending that raw signal directly out via, the USB-C port. For them to have 2 of them, that to me is super, super interesting. And maybe they can use 2 to have 2 copies of the footage, just like you use 2 SD cards, but now you're going to have 2 solid state drives on your rig itself. So interesting choice, very interesting choice. They went with no flash sync port, which was the opposite of the likes of the S1H and the GH5S, which are in this kind of the same cinema field, because that's how Panasonic actually does time code. They actually can plug into a time code generator through that port. So I guess that's a question that I have too. If you're going to use this on production sets, how are you going to do time code? Are they going to do that through USB-C? Is it are they going to do it a different way? It'll be interesting to see. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe this is not meant for that same level of production.
Or maybe through their hot shoe is the other thing. They have done stuff in the past, like the microphone through the hot shoe. So
yeah, they could do some type of time sync there. Only up to 4K 60 will be 10-bit 422 internal. So it's crazy to me that Panasonic has been able to do 4K 60 10-bit for how long now? And they've been leading. And then Fuji also has added it, and unlimited too. They are talking about 4K 60 10-bit unlimited finally. But it's crazy to me how long it's taken Sony to catch up to this, especially because if you look at Sony's pedigree in the video world, I mean, they have, from capture to distribution, they have Sony Pictures, they have the Venice line, the Sony Venice, they have cinema cameras, and then they have, the A7S. So if anybody knew about these things, you would think that they'd be able to do it. Or are they actively choosing not to because of the reasons that you mentioned with the heat, or just they don't want or they don't want to cannibalize on their other lines,
Yeah.
But
my guess is it's the heat and the G, what is it, the GH1? No, what is the full frame body for Panasonic? They've got
S series,
SH1. Thank you. They've got that active fan in it to keep it cool. The GH line micro four thirds sensor, much smaller, much less processing power needed to do what they're doing. I think the micro four thirds sensor, even though it seems to be being phased out, is better for video. If that's all you're shooting for most cases. This camera, I'm sure, like the previous A7S is going to be a monster in low light. But most people aren't shooting in low light. They've got their lights set up, like I'm waving at mine over here, wherever it is. And so they don't need the low light capabilities. But that said, I'm sure people are going to be all over this camera.
Exactly. And another thing that people have been all over recently is our free Fuji rentals. Haha, segue. So, free Fuji rentals now until the end of the month. So, you still have a little bit of time to take advantage of those. We're still doing the tech time. So, if you do book time with Fuji tech representative, there's some additional savings there that you can get. And the XT3 is like, I think it's the lowest price it's ever been. I was helping someone and I had to like triple check the price. I was like, wow, like XT3 is probably the best deal, especially
Yes.
this week.
I think I saw 999 and I was
Yep.
shocked by that too because I had that XT3 until a few months ago and it is a fantastic camera.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to try, if you want to give Fuji a try, we do have the free rentals, but we do have awesome savings on the XT3, and you can save even more with the tech time. Did you know that we also have camera user groups, Mike?
Really? Like the
No.
Ohio Fuji fam that I am an active participant in?
Absolutely. We actually have a couple of them. We have the Midwest Lumix user group, we have the Ohio Olympus users, and the Ohio Fuji fam. So if you just do a quick search on Facebook, you will find these, and we post different challenges and stuff every week. And we are working with the manufacturers actually to give away some fun stuff. So the plan is to have weekly competitions and give away some cool swag. So I think in the Fuji group, we've given away a cool vintage Fuji bag, like a dry erase lens cap, so that way you can write, on it like, hey, this is my 50 millimeter, and you can look in your bag and see exactly what it is. So yeah, that's our plans with those groups, but also we provide support through those groups. So the tech reps it's not even in the region, I mean nationwide, are in those groups to help you. So if you have absolutely any questions, you're out on a shoot and something happens with your XT3, then Chris is there to help you and support you. I'm here, Matt's here, the whole team at Pixel is there to support you. And honestly, it's fun just to have, similar people that shoot the similar things that you do all in one place, and you can share your love of those camera systems. So how do you get the slides from today? Well, you can actually go over to thepixelconnection.com and click on that little button that says subscribe, and we will send you an email right around 6 o'clock that has all the links and all the slides from today. Or you can shoot us an email at sales@thepixelconnection.com. Find us on Instagram at the.pixelconnection, or just head over to Facebook and type in the Pixel Connection. You'll be sure to find us there. Mr. Mike, that wraps it. I hope that, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time and the knowledge that you bring to the table. And just to remind everybody, where can they find you on the interwebs?
I'm at dadcooksdinner.com or at dadcooksdinner on most of the socials.
Excellent. Well, I don't know about you, but I feel like it is time to focus on the weekend. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and thank you everybody for watching us. We'll talk soon.